Welcome to Vietnam Vet Speaks Out. This channel was inspired by Oliver Anthony and Deion Sanders. Now give me my theme music. Hello, welcome to Vietnam Era Vet Speaks Out. Before I get started on this video, I'd like to ask you to do a favor for me. I don't have any social media accounts. No Twitter, no TikTok, no Facebook, no Instagram. And I never will. So in order for me to get my word out and for people to learn about my channel, I'm dependent upon people like you to share these videos when you like them. So I'd appreciate it if you would take the time to share on the social media platforms that you're on any of my videos that you enjoy and you think are worth other people seeing. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about today's topic. It came across my email last night, and when I read this page, this op-ed that Jason Whitlock wrote, I was kind of surprised. Look at the headline. CoachPrime in Colorado are the new Coach K and Duke. Privileged, entitled, hypocritical, and easy to dislike. That headline really surprised me. I think Coach Prime is probably one of the most popular people in the country right now. So it's hard to understand why Whitlock feels this way. Now, I will tell you this. I know that Whitlock works for Blaze Media, so he's likely a conservative commentator. And I know that he's a black man. But that's about all I know about him. I don't know very much else. And I'm not going to assign any motives to him because I don't know him, so I don't know what motivated him to write this article. But what he wrote in this article to me was shocking. He said, of the many things that Sanders has done and said that make me uncomfortable with his, I'm sorry, I have trouble reading, so I have to hold this up close. Short tenure at Colorado. It is his insistence on defining his actions as God-inspired that bothers me the most. Money and security motivated Deion's Boulder, Colorado relocation. Nothing else. God had nothing to do with it. I don't know how Jason Whitlock can possibly know that. Unless he can get inside Deion's mind and his heart, how can he make that kind of a statement? It just amazes me that someone can assign such nefarious motives to another human being without really knowing anything much about them. And it's clear when you read the article that he doesn't know much about Deion. He says Sanders wanted to escape the poverty and crime of Jackson, Mississippi, where he spent a little more than 2 years coaching at Jackson State University. I don't have a problem with that. Well, that's a lie, because you do. You wouldn't have written this article if you didn't. I have a problem with Sanders lying about his motivation and lying about the brutal tactics he used to overhaul the Colorado roster. What? What is he talking about? Brutal tactics? He was honest with the players. They were 1-11. They lost by an average of 29 points every single game last year. So he walks in and he says to them, look, we're going to be winners, and if you don't want to be a part of that, then maybe you should consider getting in the portal and leaving. He never kicked anybody out. They left. They quit on him. There are 10 players on that team that were on last year's team, and those 10 didn't quit. They chose to accept the challenge that Deion offered and to remain on the team and prove that they could play football Deion's way. The others were quitters. They gave up. They left. They went other places. I hope that they all succeed where they went to. But the fact that they left tells you something about them as far as their belief in their own talents. They couldn't have believed very much about themselves if they were willing to leave without even trying out Deion first to see what he was like and to understand what his motivation was and what his coaching was like. It's just, to call that brutal tactics to me is a distortion of what took place, a complete distortion. Now, he says, Deion Sanders isn't the mastermind of a miracle turnaround. He's a brand that Colorado purchased and gave a blank check to buy players and coaches. Well, that claim's been made before and it's been proven wrong. Deion didn't buy anyone. As a matter of fact, he turned down players that wanted to play there because of their attitude and because of their motivation. Deion is looking for people that have character, that care about their studies. If you've ever paid any attention to Deion at all, you know that he expects his players to do well in the classroom. And you won't play on his team if you don't. So the idea that he did this for money, it's ridiculous. Is Whitlock aware of the fact that Deion spent half of his salary at Jackson State to pay for things that the university wouldn't or couldn't pay for? Does he even realize what motivates Deion? I don't think he does, because I've been watching Deion closely since December. And what I've seen is a man who cares deeply about his players, who cares deeply about success, and who will go out of his way to help people. He cares more about his players succeeding as men than he does as football players. He's told them that repeatedly. He has stood in the room with the team and said, 95% of you are not going to the NFL. I want to make you a success in life, not a success in football. Some of you will exceed in football too, but I expect all of you to succeed in life. Does that sound like a man who's selfish, who's motivated by money? I don't get where Jason Whitlock is coming from. I don't understand his motivation. But I'm not going to question his motivation because I don't know him and I don't know what makes him tick. Then he writes, all the bandwagon black sports fans ditching their Jackson State hoodies for Colorado. Hoodies. You're selling out. No different from CoachPrime. It's what we do. We love, he's talking about black people here, and he presumes to speak for all black people, which I don't understand how anybody can do that. I can't say what white people do. I don't represent the entire white population, and no black person represents the entire black population. They're as diverse a group of people as any group. But Whitlock thinks that he can speak for all blacks when he says, it's not what we do. We love to talk black power and black Wall Street while taking every opportunity to empower white liberals and enrich white Wall Street. I don't know, maybe Whitlock is too tied up in the politics of the world to see things clearly, but I just don't understand where he's coming from. I don't understand this kind of talk. The obvious fraudulence would be hilarious if it were not so sad. Black elites are the true face of white supremacy. What? That is an astounding Black elites are the true face of white supremacy. Who is he talking about? Dr. Dre? Snoop Dogg? Oprah? Where does this come from? I don't understand this thinking. They have no interest in ending oppression. They want to benefit from it. How in the world does a black person benefit from oppression? What in the world is Jason Whitlock talking about? I just don't understand. Maybe you can explain it to me in the comments. I'd appreciate it if somebody could make sense of it to me, because it makes no sense at all. They hate the working class and the poor. They have no moral anchor, no firm set of values. Hypocrisy is their defining moral code. It's hard for me not to sit here and say that Jason Whitlock is a very judgmental person. I don't see how you could get anything else out of his comments but that. He's condemning an entire race for something that he can't even prove they've done, and he certainly can't prove the whole race has done it. There are lots of wonderful black people in the world. We see them all the time on television, in sports, in entertainment, in politics, in all fields of life, in education. People like Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are lots of wonderful black people. I don't know where Jason Whitlock is coming from. I really don't. And it certainly doesn't seem to be a conservative point of view. Then he says, Dion's son, Shadur, drives a Maybach and loves flashing his diamond-encrusted Rolex watches in front of his opponents. Like his dad, he wears a big gold chain and drips with arrogance. Well, what you call arrogance, I would call confidence. And when Shadur goes like this and holds up his arm with his watch on it, what I take him to be saying is, you know what time it is. You hear that comment from black players all the time. You know what time it is. It's a very common phrase. And that, to me, is what Shadur is saying. You know what time it is. He flashed his watch on the sideline to the Buffalo student section over and over again. Was he displaying arrogance there, or was he pumping up the crowd saying, you know what time it is. It's time for us to win another game. And he drives a Maybach Mercedes. I didn't even know what that was. I had to look it up. Apparently it's a very expensive version of a Mercedes. But why not? He has the money. He can afford it. Why can't he have things he can afford? What is wrong with that? I have things I can afford. Does that make me arrogant? I don't get it. I really don't get it. And at the end of his article, he finishes with this. It's all about Deion Sanders and nothing more. Nothing that he said in that article could be further from the truth than that statement. Absolutely nothing. It is not all about Deion Sanders. It's all about his kids. He has said that so many times. He has demonstrated it so many times. He has proven it over and over again. In his actions, in his words, in everything he does, he shows that he loves those kids, that he wants the best for them. He's promised their parents that he will raise a man for them, that he will teach their child manners and respect, and that they will be successful in life, regardless of whether they ever set foot on the NFL football field or any other professional level. Deion knows that 95% of his players aren't going pro. That's normal. All of college, that's normal. Let's face it, the NFL is the top 1% of all football players in college, and college football players are probably the top 10% of all high school players. It's a filtering system, and it filters down to the very best. Only the very best make it in the NFL. But there's lots of kids on that team who will be successful in life because Deion has taught them to believe in themselves, to believe in what they're doing, and to believe that they can be successful. That kind of teaching is priceless. I think Jason Whitlock is way off the mark. But what do you think? Do you agree with him? Do you think Deion is arrogant and flashy? I think that's the surface that you see on TV. But the man underneath is a high-quality individual. And to get back to the first thing that he said, let me read that to you because I want to make sure I get it right. Of the many things that Sanders has done, and said that make me uncomfortable with his short tenure at Colorado. It is his insistence on defining his actions as God-inspired that bothers me the most. Well, I guess my actions would bother him too, because my actions are God-inspired. My whole life is God-inspired. God is at the center of my life, and I'm not afraid to tell you that. And Dion's not afraid to tell you that. And if you feel threatened by that, maybe you need to do a checkup from the neck up. Maybe you need to think clearly about what your mind is telling you. Because Deion Sanders is a quality individual doing a fantastic job, something that's never been done before. He's 3-0 on a team that went 1-11 last year. He beat the TCU in the first week, the team that went to the national championship. Yeah, they got walloped by Georgia, but they're still a good team. And they're 2-0 or 2-1 right now. The only game they've lost is to Colorado. Okay? And that was a tight game, by the way. It was only decided by 3 points. They played Houston, and they beat Houston, and Houston was 8-5 last year. Okay? So they've played quality competition, and they have won. They played a longtime state rival last week in CSU, and they struggled. They struggled mightily because CSU had a great game plan. They executed it well, and they really took it to CU. But in the end, they showed their true character when they pulled it out and ended up winning the game at the end. They showed that they're a team that's resilient. They showed that they're a team that doesn't quit. And where do you think they get those qualities from? It's not out of thin air, folks. It's from Deion Sanders. It's from what he's taught them and what he emulates in his life, what he demonstrates on a daily basis. He has no fear, he has no doubt, and he's convinced he will win. And that goes a long way toward bringing success to a program, bringing success to individuals, bringing success to anything in life. So Jason Whitlock, in my personal opinion, you are so far off base, you're not even in the right ballpark. I don't understand where you're coming from, and I'm not going to attribute any motives to you because I don't know what your motives are. But you're wrong about Deion. You're dead wrong. And you're wrong about black people, too. Black people are much higher quality than what you give them credit for. I think you need to get your head out of politics and get out in the real world and get to know some real people. Maybe that would help you understand. I want to thank you for watching my video. I want to thank you for coming to my channel. I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe if you like my content, and like and share it with other people. And lastly, I pray that God will bless you, bless your family, give you prosperity and health, and have a long life. And I ask that you pay attention to these words from the Bible. Be anxious in nothing, but in all things with prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace that passes all understanding will fill your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Vietnam era vet speaks out.